Yo guys, what's up and welcome to another tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how Metro Boomin makes crazy experimental samples in the style of Travis Scott and 21 Savage. So first of all I'm going to show you all the sample, then after that I will show you all the effects I used for the different sounds and different instruments. By the way, obviously I don't know how any of these songs of Metro Boomin's new album will sound like, but I'm thinking of a style and I think it will be pretty experimental and the sample sounds like it would fit the vibe of the album. So it's basically a Hello-Fi sample for Travis Scott. So let me know what you think of it in the comments, and please don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe and to turn on the bell so you will get a notification every time I upload. And yeah guys, let's go. So I started off with using Nightfall Bank and I used the Dead Spirit preset, which is basically just a simple synth key or like a basic synth. It's from Prod by Haze, and I started off with laying down this pretty simple and repetitive pattern. As always, I randomized the velocities, and what I basically did was laying down this D sharp minor chord, but I used this F and pitched it down 1 and then pitched it up by 12 and then deleted the A, so it sounds like this. And then I just started off laying down this pretty simple pattern. First of all, the pattern is sounding like this. So yeah, it's a pretty bouncy pattern, but I wanted it to be like that and pretty repetitive, as I said. And for the effects on the synth, I used this pretty parametric EQ just to EQ out some frequencies that I didn't like. Then this RC20 basically just for the wobble to make it sound more vintage. Then this Apex Vintage Exciter with these settings. Then this Valhalla Vintage Rev where I tweaked the mix, the decay and the low cut. Then this simple EQ just to cut out some of the lows and duck some of the highs just to make it sound a lot more vintage. Then this Sooth on the hard setting and a knob to 4.0. And then this Sooth on its default settings. Then I had this EQ where I took out a lot of the lows and some of the low mids and a lot of the highs just to make it sound even more vintage. And for the next thing I used this Kendrick preset out of the Artillery Volume 2, and it's basically just an arpeggio, and I laid down this pattern and this ARP is so fire. And to be honest, I had it as my first instrument but not as the like main instrument obviously, and I just tried to get a little bit of variation in the sample, so I used this ARP as I said, and the finished ARP is sounding like this. Then for the effects on this ARP, I had this Valhalla Vintage Rev where I tweaked the mix and the decay. Then this simple Sooth on a hard setting and a knob to 4.0. And I had this simple EQ where I took out a lot of the lows and low mids and a little bit of the highs just to make it sound more vintage and to duck it a bit more into the background. Then for the next instrument, I used the same bank again, and I used this Unable lead pad from Max Shooter and Ezra again, as I said. And I just laid down the simple ARP again in the 1/2 step, and I didn't even randomize the velocities, and it's like a question answer thing, I think that's how you say it. So basically the one ARP plays and the other one like replies, I would say. So it basically just sounds good, and I'll let both ARPs play together so y'all can hear what I mean. And this is how both of these ARPs together sound like. And for the effects on the second ARP, I had this simple Sooth on a hard setting and a knob to 6.1. And this free parametric EQ where I cut out a lot of the lows, low mids and mids, just because this lead pad had too much low end. And that's basically it for the effects on the second ARP. Then for the next thing, I used this shaker loop from Nami. It's called Swimmies. And I just brought it into time and put it on stretch. And for the second thing, I used this clean crackle from Nami again. And I brought it into time again, put the declick mode on generic and the mode on stretch. And they are basically just there to give the whole sample more texture and to make it sound more vintage. And both these perc or texture loops are sounding like this. And for the effects on these perc loops, I had this simple EQ just to duck some of the lows and duck some of the highs. And then this EQ just to cut out a lot of the highs and a lot of the lows. Then this Sooth on a hard setting and a knob to 4.9. And this fully reverb with these settings and the mix to 35%. And that's basically it for the effects on these perc loops. Then for the next thing, I used this bank, which I can't pronounce at all. But I used the Scream preset, it's a re-choir. And I laid down this pattern, which is a simple pattern. It's basically just a choir lead melody. And first of all, it sounds like this. Then after that I just rendered it out and had the normal version right here. I just put the declick mode on generic, put the mode on stretch and lowered the volume by a bit. And then I had this version which I pitched down by 1 octave and had the same settings on it, and I just had it like this to give the whole vocal phrase or like choir more texture and more of a full feeling and more low end obviously. And together this vocal lead melody is sounding like this. And for the effects on these vocals, I had this fully parametric EQ where I cut out a lot of the frequencies that I didn't like. Then this Valhalla Vintage Verb where I tweaked the mix and decay. Then this Simple Soothe where I had it on the hard setting and the knob to 7.9. And then this EQ where I enhanced the highs a bit and cut out a lot of the lows and low mids. And I boosted the thing by 3.5 decibels. Then for the next thing I used the bass which is named Ferno. And I laid down this pretty simple bass line. It's basically just a D sharp note, but I switched it up at the end to give it a bit more variation. I didn't even randomize the velocities, and the finished bass line is sounding like this. And for the effects on this bass, I had this Simple Soothe where I had it on a hard setting and the knob to 9.1. Then this arc compressor with the threshold on -6 and the ratio to 2.01. Then this decapitator with these settings. This fully fast distortion on its default setting, but the mix to 35%. Then this Simple Soothe on its hard setting again, and I used the EQ to enhance the lows a bit. And then this EQ just to cut out some of the muddy lows and a bit of the highs, which is actually not necessary, but I have this on my preset in case I want to cut out some of the highs from the bass. And I have it 100% in mono. Then for the mastering chain, I used this Goodhead's can opener with these settings. This arc compressor, which I didn't touch at all. It's just on a mastering chain. Then this Goodhead's wall control with these settings. Then this RC20, which I tweaked a bit, so I basically just left on the distortion, the magnetic and the EQ. Then this L1 limiter stereo from Waves. And then these two EQs, which I didn't touch at all, but they basically just stay on my mastering chain in case I want to cut out some of the frequencies. Then after that, I rendered the sample out, put the declick mode on generic, put the mode on stretch, normalized it and put it on the 8th mixer track. And on the 8th mixer track, there is this simple fully parametric EQ where I cut out a lot of the frequencies that I didn't like. Then this sound shift the pitch stereo from Waves where I pitched it down by 2 semitones. Then this EQ where I cut out some of the muddy lows. And I boosted the whole sample by 3.2 decibels because it was a bit quiet and I just wanted it to be louder. And the finished sample is sounding like this. So yeah guys, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and to subscribe to my channel. And please make sure to activate the bell, it would really mean a lot. And if you haven't commented yet, make sure to leave a comment as well. That really helps a lot for me to get in the algorithm. And if you haven't checked out my socials, make sure to do that as well. The links for that will be in my description. And by the way, this loop will be in my Discord for free, so y'all can check that out as well. And thank y'all for this crazy support. And yeah guys, see y'all.